is I'm making some hamburger steak, which is basically just ground beef. And I'm gonna wash my hands real quick, but basically just ground beef and seasoning, and there's some more stuff over there. So seasonings, and I like to add an egg and Ritz crackers. So I'm gonna wash my hands first before I start working on that, because I did just open that box and only God knows where that box has been and the materials that were in it. So I'm gonna wash my hands before I start getting ready to prep my hamburger steak. I'm not gonna make the hamburger steak today, I'm gonna make it tomorrow. But what I am gonna do today though is get all of the ingredients in there so it can taste good. So I didn't used to prep. I'm putting on food service gloves. I know y'all use the latex gloves, but I'm using food service gloves just because that's kind of what I like and what I'm used to. Do you use gloves when you cook at home and no one's watching? I do, because I don't like it under my nails. Yeah, I know, right? Under my nails, and they're like little shorties right now. But that's okay, because the little shorties are fine for me for right now. But I typically have longer nails, but I don't right now. So while I don't have longer nails, I'm still going to do it because it's a habit. You know, I'm putting my ground beef in here. And remember, I don't like doing things twice. So I'm taking this straight to the trash. Straight over to the trash. Okay. And I'm gonna use 2 pounds of ground beef. I was only gonna do 1, but then I'm like, might as well just do both when I make the hamburger steak. So I'm gonna use 1 egg. I'm gonna crack my egg. Some people whisk it a little bit. I just crack mine and put it right on in there. I don't have any tricks. I don't know how to do one hand with opening the eggs. But now my hands don't feel, oh no, there it is. I gotta get the Ritz crackers. And I've been touching the raw meat, so I don't want to open the Ritz crackers with the gloves on. Now I'm gonna try to do it one hand. Okay, so when I am cooking, I'm more mindful about cooking nowadays, because I was once told that when I cook and I'm not into it, that my food is disgusting. Y'all believe that? You know, people be like, do it with love. You gotta do it with love, or it's not real. You be like, oh my God, get out of my face. But then when people, this isn't working. Oh, there it goes. But then when people that actually eat your food tell you it wasn't that great, and I'm gonna use about half a roll, but when people tell you it wasn't that great, it does hurt your feelings. Like, pretty bad. You're like, okay, why didn't you get my attitude together? So I've always loved cooking and creating, but sometimes I don't have the best attitude about it. And what I've learned is that when you don't have the best attitude about it, it's not gonna be all that great. So I'm just gonna use garlic and pepper, put it on here. I'm also gonna break up my crackers, but since I already have this one hand out, because it hasn't touched the raw meat, I'm not. If it does touch the raw meat, then I'll just wash it and have to go through all those steps, and I don't want to do all that, so I'm just going to use this one hand. And this is just McCormick's Grill Mates hamburger seasoning that I'm going to put on here. I know you may be wondering, like, where are your fresh vegetables and your onion and bell peppers and stuff like that? Well, my family really doesn't eat that stuff. They don't really like those vegetables and different things like that. To each his own, whatever floats your boat. And I am not fighting with them nor wasting food over it. So I season it. I'm gonna season it. And then after I season it, I'm gonna let this sit for probably about 24 hours. I'll come back and cook it tomorrow. Like I said, I didn't used to do it like this. I used to just prep it that day and then put it in there. But sometimes I don't have the energy or I just genuinely don't have time to come home and prep it like this and then put it in the skillet. And plus, what I learned too with making like the hamburger steak, when you do it like this, it packs a little bit better. It's still tender, it's still really good. And then this is just a little bit of Creole seasoning. I love Creole seasoning. And now I'm going to break up my crackers. I'm putting this back on to break up my crackers. But yeah, so like when I'm cooking, I've been told that if I have an attitude, or like it's not, I'm not happy to be in the kitchen and the food isn't as good. So I try to think about that, excuse me, when I'm in the kitchen. Like, I kind of check myself, you know. Have you ever heard somebody say, check yourself before coming in here, or you better think about it, think again before you do something, or whatever. I really try to be mindful of that, especially when I'm coming into the kitchen, because I feel like if you cook with love, and maybe this is just me, but I feel like if you cook with love, then people that you love that are eating it, they'll have a little bit of that love. And even if there are people, if you're catering for a party, or you're just doing something for your little cousin or your niece or nephew or whatever, and you're cooking for them, it could be hot dogs. Do it with a good attitude. Do it with a good attitude. Whatever you're doing, try to do it with a good attitude. And if you don't feel like doing something, why you don't feel like cooking? Is it because you feel like somebody else should be cooking for you? Or is it because you're like, I've had a long day, you've been at home all day, why haven't you cooked? Okay, just because I've been at home all day doesn't mean I haven't had a long day. No. And just because I'm good at something doesn't mean I want to do it. Uh-oh. I didn't think about that. So now I'm just going to mix up my ground beef and my crackers and my egg. And I use, like I said, I use Ritz crackers, about half a roll, or if you do the snack size, the whole roll if you do the snack size. I have a little bit of Tony Chachere's Cajun spice, and I use Grill Mates hamburger seasoning. And I use garlic pepper. It's just the best choice brand. The garlic and pepper, like just the best choice brand. And I just give it a good seasoning. And I'm going to mix it, but I'm not going to over mix it because I don't want it mush. When you get your ground beef and it's mush, to me, it does not taste as good. So I want mine a little bit hearty, especially if I'm making what's called hamburger steak. So I know before you've seen me do the pizza or whatever, you didn't really get to see the first step of the lasagna. But this is one of the meals I'm going to make from scratch. So tomorrow I'm going to make the hamburger steak. And I'm going to have, what else am I going to make for hamburger steak? And it's going to be gravied. So I'm going to make my gravy from scratch. And I'm going to have, I'm about to wash my hands again, but I'm going to have mashed potatoes from scratch as well. And I feel like I'm going to have to do mac and cheese because my daughter she ain't had that mac and cheese in a minute. But I'm going to do, for sure, the hamburger steak. For sure, made from scratch gravy. And for sure, mashed potatoes. Green beans, maybe. But I prepped this. I'm going to put it in the refrigerator. I'm going to put some aluminum foil in it. Aluminum foil over it. And put it in the refrigerator. And then I'll do a part 2. I'll show you how I'm making the hamburger steak. But seriously, when you enter into a space, I feel like it's very good for you to have a good attitude and to want to do it. And if you don't want to do it, learn your why you don't want to do something. Like, why don't you want to cook? Is it because you feel like you're not that good at it? Or you feel like you're cooking things for ungrateful people? Or you feel like you're cooking things that no one wants to eat? Or you feel like you're cooking the exact same things over and over and over again? Because when I would come into the kitchen and I had an attitude, my number one reason for not wanting to cook something is because I didn't feel like cooking that same thing. And I had been at work all day and I felt like my little kids weren't going to eat it. My kids were under 2. And I'm like, they are not going to want this hamburger steak. But that's okay because the parents do. We want the hamburger steak. So we can cook the hamburger steak. We can have the hamburger steak. So just have a good attitude. Do your best to have a good attitude and everything will be okay.